What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a really long time since I've been here. I'm really sorry about that. I was busy with a lot of things, mainly school though, but no worries, I'm back. So I know a lot of you have your physics exams coming up in a few weeks, and leading to that, I want to do this IGCSE Physics paper for predictions for the May June 2025 series. And a lot of you have been asking for that, so here it is. And since your exams are coming up soon, I'll also be doing more videos leading up to that time. So make sure to subscribe for upcoming content. So the first topic, it's physical quantities and measurement techniques. So the probability has actually decreased from last year. It's now less than 1%. And throughout all the 2024 papers, including all the March, May, June, and October, November papers, it has decreased, and I have only seen it twice. Yes, twice. So expect no questions from this topic, or one or two. And the only times I've seen it being asked is vectors. So mainly focus on scalar and vector quantities, and also resultant vectors from diagrams. These are the two ways I've seen it come. I haven't seen the use of different apparatus coming up, so mainly focus on scalars and vectors and resultant vectors from diagrams. So make sure you understand how to resolve vectors and calculate resultant vector and both magnitude and the direction. It's worth about 4 marks, so if it comes, make sure you understand that. The next one, it's motion. So with a probability of 5%, that's about 4 marks per paper. So what do they ask you? So mainly they ask you to calculate velocity, acceleration, and distance. And usually these quantities, they ask you from graphs. So make sure you know how to interpret the different types of motion graphs. If you don't know how to read those motion graphs, I've done a video on that in my crash course, which I will link down below in the description. And also understand free fall and terminal velocity. This also can be grouped with the forces question. I've seen terminal velocity come up a lot, so make sure you understand terminal velocity and how it can occur. So quick revision. What's free fall and terminal velocity? So during free fall is when an object falls without no force, and the acceleration of a falling object is always 9.8 meters per second squared. That's the acceleration. And terminal velocity happens when there is air resistance. So if this object is falling down, air resistance acts in the opposite direction. Let's call air resistance R. It acts in the opposite direction. So as the ball is moving down, it speeds up. So velocity of this ball increases as it's moving down. If the velocity increases, the air resistance also increases. And then there's going to be a point where the weight of the ball is going to be equals to the air resistance. So that means there's no resultant force. So that means at that point, the ball will travel at a constant velocity. So if we're to graph that, we would have velocity and time, and it would be some kind of curve with a decreasing gradient. And then at this point, velocity is constant, meaning that resultant force is zero. So make sure you understand that and know how to explain it. It's usually up to 3 marks. Forces. Now this is one of the popular ones. Probability is 15%, so expect about 11 marks per paper. So this one, they can bring it integrated into different questions, so you can see it in motions, you can see it in multiple different topics throughout the paper. And there'll also be a specific section for forces, mainly talking about momentum, impulse, and moments. So what do they ask you? They can ask you about mass and weight. So know the relationship between mass and weight. Weight is the mass times gravity. density, make sure you know density, the formula, which is mass over volume. And the turning effect of forces, this is another one. So it's also known as moments. So make sure you can calculate the forces. They would give you diagrams, and they could ask you to calculate the distance or the force. So make sure you understand moments. And the next one is center of mass. I haven't seen this one come up a lot lately, but then it could still come up. So make sure you know how to define center of mass. And the last one is momentum, the popular one actually when you're talking about forces. So momentum is equals to mass times velocity. Also know the conservation of momentum. So momentum before collision is equals to momentum after collision. So I really understand how to apply this. Again, if you're not sure about any of these topics, I've covered them in details in my crash course video, so make sure to check it out after this video. The fourth topic, work, energy, and power. So the probability for this one is 5%, so about 4 marks per paper. So this topic, as you can probably tell, has decreased in popularity. And I don't know why, but then the only time that I've seen them ask it is within the forces one or the motion questions. So it's not going to be much. It's usually 4 marks, but then I've seen multiple occurrences where it's a 4-mark question. So truly understand the topics of kinetic energy and gravitational potential energy, and you should also be able to use this formula. So half mv squared equals mgh. So if you're able to use this formula, you'd be fine. And the next one is energy resources. So make sure you can differentiate between renewable and non-renewable energy sources, and which ones come from the sun and which ones don't, because I've seen this multiple times. And the next one is work done and efficiency. So work done is going to be force times distance in the same direction of the force. And efficiency is in percentage. It's how efficient the machine is. So it's going to be the output power over the input power times 100. That's efficiency. And when talking about power is work done over time, or the energy transferred over time. So make sure you understand how to use these formulas and how you can manipulate them. Pressure. Now this fifth topic is the one I found the most interesting, because I have only seen it in one or two questions, or I mean 1 or 2 papers, and it has decreased in popularity clearly. So probability of 2% and about 2 marks per paper. And the interesting part is those 2 times it came, it was about explanation of particles in a container. So the question is something like this: explain how particles in a container uh, exert momentum, exert pressure on the walls of the container. So let me quickly go through that right now, because I've seen it multiple times and it's usually about 3 marks. So we have small particles, and the question is how they exert pressure on the walls of the container. So now these gas particles, they're moving at high speeds in random directions. So obviously they're going to be colliding with the walls of the container. So when they collide, there's going to be a change in momentum. And then we know that force is equals to change in momentum over time. So when a change in momentum happens, or when they collide, there's going to be a force exerted on the wall. So there's going to be a force exerted on parts of the wall of the container. And let's say this particle, it exerts a force on this part. Let's call this area A. And we know that pressure equals force over area. So that's how they exert pressure on the walls of container. What else do you need to know? Know pressure in solids and liquid. So in solid, it's force over area, just like I talked about. And liquids is rho g h, density times gravity times height or depth. And understand how area affects pressure. So if area increases, pressure decreases because they are inversely proportional, if we can see from the formula. And also understand how to calculate pressure on an object. So use either this formula or this one, depending if it's a solid or a liquid. The next one, thermal physics. So thermal physics, it has a probability of 12%, which is about 9 marks. 9 marks per paper. So what do they ask? So they ask you about the states of matter, and maybe they can ask you to differentiate between state of matter in terms of particles and their forces between them. And that's what we call the particle model. And the next one is thermal expansion. So understand how thermal expansion can occur. And also the next one is specific heat capacity. So I've seen multiple calculations of specific heat capacity. So make sure you know the formula. Q equals mc change in T. So make sure you know this formula and understand how you use it. So I've gone through this in my crash course, so you can check it out. The next one is transfer of thermal energy. The three types. What are the three types, you may ask? It's conduction, convection, and radiation. So understand these three types and when they could occur. Topic 7, waves. So this one, it's, I believe, the second most popular topic. It has a probability of 17%. That's about 13 marks per paper. So 13 marks, it can bump you up a whole grade. It can take your B's into an A or your C's into a B. So make sure you truly understand this question, this topic, I mean. And I have even seen instances where there were 18 marks. I think it was one of the October-November papers for 2024. There was 18 marks on waves. So it was like nine mark on one of the question and another 9 mark on the other question. So make sure you understand waves. It can really affect your final grade. So what do you need to know? Properties of waves. So understand reflection, refraction, and also diffraction. Make sure you understand these properties. And light. Also know that light travels at 3 times 10 to the power of 8 meters per second. And also understand the wave properties specifically for light. So the reflection of light, refraction and diffraction. And the next one is electromagnetic spectrum. So know the trend in electromagnetic spectrum. So going from the gamma rays all the way up to the radio waves. So if when we go from the gamma ray to radio waves, wavelength increases and frequency decreases. So make sure you understand that part. The next one, sound waves. Sound wave. So what you need to know about sound wave is know about ultrasound. Ultrasound is basically a sound. It is a sound that has a frequency greater than 20,000 hertz. And also be able to do calculations with ultrasound and also echo And lastly, but not least, is wave diagrams. So I've seen this come up multiple times. They would give you a wave diagram, and then you'd have a lens over here. That's a bad drawing. Let me try that again. So you have a lens over here, and they would ask you to, they'll put an object, and they would ask you to draw where the image of the object is formed. So make sure you understand how to do exactly to do that, because I've seen it multiple times and it's usually 3 marks or more. So make sure you understand this part. The next topic, topic 8, electricity and magnetism. So electricity and magnetism, this is, as you all know, the biggest topic. The biggest topic with a probability of 20% and 16 marks per paper. 16 marks. So the our a paper is 80 marks, so 16 marks. That's 20%. 20%. So it can take you from a C to an A. It can bump you up 2 grades. So make sure you understand this topic in depth. So what could they ask you? They could ask you about electric charges. So positive charges and negative charges, and like charges repel, or unlike charges attract. So make sure you understand properties of charges. And the next one is electric circuit and circuit components. So this one I've seen it come up countless times. So they would give you a circuit, and you're supposed to calculate the voltage, resistance, or current, or even power. So you have to know formulas that can relate each one of them. So I've gone through all the formulas on my crash course, but then let me go through a few important ones. So the first one is Ohm's law, V equals IR. Make sure you know this formula. The next one is power equals IV. And then you have energy, which equals IVT. So you can rearrange each formula and then place in them. So if, let's say, energy is equals to, so I, to find I, we can rearrange this formula. So I equals V over R. So energy is going to be V squared over RT. So know how to manipulate these formulas, and it will help you solve most of the questions. And the next one is magnetism. So learn the properties of a magnet, and also, I cannot stress this enough, learn about electromagnetic induction, and how a transformer works, and also, yeah, how a transformer works, and also the working, the how a DC and AC generator works. And then next one is electromagnetic effect. Yeah, this was the one I'm talking about. So how a transformer works, how a wire interacts with when it's in a magnetic field. And the one I've seen like a lot in the 2024 papers is how a wireless charger works. So I've seen this question a lot of times. So let me just quickly go through it. So a wireless charger, let's say this is a wireless charger. I'm not great at drawing, so forgive me. So we have coils in the wireless charger, and let's say this is the back of our phone. Just draw that again. So just to make it an iPhone. So this is our iPhone, and then the phone has its own coils at its back. This is used for wireless charging. So how exactly a wireless charger works is the coils, they produce a alternating magnetic field. So these coils produce alternating magnetic field. Let me just abbreviate that. So when these coils produce alternating magnetic field, they will induce a current inside the coils inside the phone. I need more space. Let me just erase this. So let me bring these two over here. So if an alternating magnetic field is produced here, it would, so when the phone is on top of the wireless charger, that means the coils would be cutting the alternating magnetic field, the coils of the phone. So when that happens, an electric field is induced, or current is induced. So that current is the one that's charging your battery. So that's how a wireless charger works. So understand how this works. I haven't seen it in the previous papers, but then 2024 papers I've seen it multiple times. So it's probably going to come in one of the 2025 papers. So make sure you understand how it works. Number 9, nuclear physics. So this one has a probability of 10% with 8 marks per paper. So what do they ask? So they ask about the atom. So understand the notation, that is XAZ. So this is the number of protons, this is the mass number, and this is the symbol of the atom. And also understand radioactivity. So know the when you're talking about radioactivity, know the effects of radioactive isotopes, know the precautions to prevent them, all that stuff. And the next one is radioactive decay and the count rate. So the count rate is a unit we use to measure radioactive decay. And I've seen multiple graphs of radioactive decay recently, which are which look like this, or something like this. Yeah, something like this. And then in radioactive decay, so make sure you know how to. Oh yeah, this is the half-life graphs. This one's they're the half-life graphs. So they'll give you a half-life graphs, and they can ask you to calculate the half-life of the isotope. So make sure you also in the half-life graphs, the trick is make sure you also account for background radiation. So this is the background radiation. So the background radiation is the radiation that is always there, even when the count rate measurement, the device used to measure the count rate. I think if I remember, it's called the Gerard Muller, something like that. I forgot the name. But then, even if that's away from the radioactive isotope, it there's still gonna be some count rate. That is the background radiation. So make sure you can calculate half-lives from half-life graphs. The next one is the equations of decay. So understand alpha decay, understand beta decay, and also gamma decay. But gamma decay is pretty simple because gamma particle has no mass and no charge. And also understand the difference between alpha, beta, and gamma particles. And there's a lots to distinguish between them. So make sure you understand that. Also, I've went through this in my crash course, so you can check it out. Now the last topic, space physics with a probability of 12% and about 10 marks per paper. So now this was added back in 2023 when this new syllabus came out, and throughout the years it's been becoming more and more popular because there are papers I've seen about 10 10 to 15 questions, or there's even one paper I've seen about 17 marks just for space physics. So your best bet is to really understand this topic. So what do they ask? They ask about the earth and the moon, but I haven't seen this come up recently. So but then the earth and the moon know how the the moon rotates, revolves around the sun, I mean the earth. And the next one is the solar system. So in our solar system we have multiple planets. Know how a planet revolves around the sun. So if this is a sun and then we have a planet, the movement of the planet is going to be elliptical, not circular. So this, yeah, so the sun is around here. So this is the path of a planet. It's elliptical and not circular. Make sure you understand that. And also the life cycle of a star. So the different stages of life cycle of different stars, like it can be giant stars or also small stars. Make sure you understand in detail the life cycle of each stars. And lastly, the universe and Hubble's constant. And make sure you understand how Hubble's constant proves the how the universe is expanding. So let me quickly go through that. So Hubble's constant, HO. So we know that HO equals V over D. This V is the speed of a galaxy moving away from us. So speed of galaxy. And this D is the distance from observer. So that's the Hubble's constant. And also understand redshift. So redshift is basically when a galaxy or anything is moving away from the Earth or away from the observer, it's going to be the light coming from that object is going to be shifted to the red side, or the wavelength of that light increases. So this proves that the universe is expanding, and they can ask you questions about how it proves, how redshift proves how the universe is expanding, and also understand how the universe came up, or about the Big Bang Theory. So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and make sure to like and subscribe for upcoming content. And if you have any requests on what I should do next, make sure to let me know down in the comments below. And if you have more help and more in-depth overview throughout the topics, make sure to check my crash course. And good luck for your exam. Thanks for watching.